Hello, Frank and Rob and the rest of the Second Mass Fighters. This is Chachi Judy, the Polish blonde in Central Massachusetts, reporting in on the timeline challenge that Frank and Rob posted to me the last time I sent in feedback. I accepted their challenge via tweets, which I don't do very often. So here it is. Basically, the invasion happened in April of 2011. 2011, basically from the Falling Skies wiki, they determined, I think, the year on that by the year that the series started. So April is based off of reference points in season 1. In the pilot episode, Tom mentions that he would be grading midterms right now. Midterms for a college professor would be late October, early November. And that when he was discussing things with Anne, they had stated that it's been 6 months since the invasion. Going back, that puts it sometime around April. So that's where we got that. Hal was a senior in high school. Puts him 18, 19 years old because he was just about to graduate. It's April. Most graduations happen May, very early June. So you're talking 18, 19 years old. Ben concretely stated he was 14. Matt was 8, another concrete age that was attributed to them. Maggie, not so hard to pin down. We know she was 18. She was living with a guy. They were kind of homeless. They were stealing, breaking into people's houses. That's what ended up in how she ended up in jail. And when she was in jail, she found out she was pregnant. And so you've got to figure that she was in prison for approximately a year and a half, 2 years for all that to go through, figuring that they took the baby away while she was in prison right after it was born. So you figure she probably had a 2-year sentence minimum. Figuring on that, okay, that puts her about 2021. Okay, so Hal, Maggie, right about the same age. Ben and Maggie, okay, we're pushing it there. And don't even bring up Matt at all. That is just not going to work. So there's my report. I'm trying to keep this as short and sweet as possible. So there you go, guys. Have a good one. Talk to you later.
You're listening to the Second Mass Report, the Falling Skies podcast for the series finale. More specifically, Season 5, Episode 10. This episode is called Reborn, and we just heard from our friend Judgy Judy over in Massachusetts, and with me once again is Rob Southgate. Rob, how you doing?
I have lots of thoughts. That's how I'm doing.
Don't we all? And don't everybody listening, including Judy. Judy, thanks so much again for your final thoughts there. We really appreciate your contribution
fantastic
this season. And I told Rob, let's start this podcast off with her thoughts. It's a great write-up. It's a great intro to everything that we want to be talking about tonight. So, Judy, thanks so much for your contribution. And like I said last time, talk to Rob about getting hooked up as a podcaster, because I would enjoy any of your work. So, but yeah, let's jump right into this. I just want to point out, well, I don't even know where to start, but let's just say that I felt that out of any episode we've ever seen before, I felt this one felt the most like a movie to me.
Okay.
Would you disagree?
No, I think the last 2 episodes felt more like a movie than it has in a while, which is better.
Okay.
I think the reason you're reacting to that is we did get some more special effects in this episode.
Yeah, there was a lot of CGI involved.
Yeah, here's my problem with it. It was awfully dark and in the background.
Okay.
If you like when they looked out on at Washington D.C., it was really cool. You saw all these things walking around. You saw this stuff going on, but it was so like dark and murky in the background, and Tom was so far back from it that it disappointed me a little bit. And the other thing that disappointed me, and we're going to talk about this, I'm sure, was the Queen. I thought, especially when it first showed up, it was way too lit. So the opposite effect. It looked so CG to me, and it looked so like overly lit. that it seemed out of place for me.
Which seemed lit to you?
The Queen.
Okay. So that was interesting, and that's something that Judy brought up, talking about it looked like a spider, it looked like a big Shelob-looking thing from Lord of the Rings. There was actually I got several Return of the King vibes out of this episode.
Yeah, definitely.
One of them being like the Shelob moment, and then as soon as it died, you'll notice every other s5e
died.
Creature died along with it, kind of the same way that what happened in the end of
sense.
Well, that's the same thing that what happened in Return of the King. I mean, like all the orcs just killed themselves or just died or whatever. I mean,
yeah, but in Return of the King, it makes sense. Those were evil creatures born out of the mud, and when the big creature that's controlling them is dead, everything falls apart.
But isn't that what we saw tonight?
No, this is just their queen. If you step on a queen ant, the other ants don't all just die. They may be confused. They're not getting their signal as to where to go. But we saw that with the Skitters already. When they lost their overlord, they would just be like, oh, they'd be like walking into walls.
Right. So we thought that this would be kind of like
just explode.
We thought this would be kind of like an ant extermination where, you poison the queen and the rest of the colony just kind of dies off because.
Exactly.
So we didn't think it was going to be like
I didn't think it was going to be explosions.
That much of a link between suddenly the mother dies and all of a sudden everyone else is just, gone.
Right.
You thought there might be some chaos and confusion.
And if that was the case, why in the world would the mother come to Earth until all humans were eradicated?
Yeah, until the threat was gone.
Completely gone.
Right.
Why?
Yeah.
There is no reason to... If taking out that creature makes the rest of them blow up, then it's just dumb.
Well, and let me just say that here's what I think is going on. We saw that creature was highly emotional and highly rhetorical, and it would sacrifice maybe some good tactics for the sake of exacting emotional revenge. It would do things like set itself up in Washington, D.C. That wasn't just done randomly. Like, it specifically chose Washington, D.C. as a rhetorical message. It made a mockery out of Lincoln's memorial. That wasn't just like, oh, we're going to set up shop here. It was, we're going to take, your monument and, cut off its head.
Right.
Like, so we're seeing that
Which
attitude.
Is ridiculous also.
Well, it's ridiculous, but we see that
a global
attitude.
attack. Why is Lincoln the victim? Why is it just the American government that it went after? Why is Tom the guy? They implied that Tom was the head of the snake. Really, I don't think so. I mean,
he was, because he was the one leading the myth. I mean, he was the John Connor of humanity. I mean, he was the one on the radio.
Yeah, but he'd only had contact with how many people? He was on the radio, but it was just recently that they found out that all these people were calling themselves the Mason Militia.
Right, and a lot of these people didn't even realize who Tom Mason was. Like when we saw Lapidus come up to him and say, "Who are you?"
Right.
I call him Lapidus from Lost.
Yeah, well, and you know what? He had 3 minutes.
Yeah, I liked his character though in this episode. I enjoyed his presence.
Oh, I did
I thought
too.
It was kind of I thought it was kind of funny how they randomly just like came across this stranger, and he was, next thing you know, he was in their war room. But I liked the character. I liked his presence in this episode and in the story.
I think that. I think this was another case of here was a character, an idea they had, and they went, oh, man, we forgot to do this. We got to cram this in here. Here you go. And why? I mean, that guy has to cost more than the average actor. Why? Why did they hire him for that?
Who knows? Maybe he was a big fan of the show and wanted to be written in.
Or he had friends on it. I don't know. It could be, but okay.
I liked him in it. I liked him
in it. I'm not having a problem with him. I'm just very confused by some of these choices.
Every time I see him in a movie or a show or anything, he's got this like confidence or this attitude or this charisma that just whichever character he's playing, he's always got it, and I like it.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. But anyway, and I want to continue talking about this Queen situation because everything that, especially she, I think, has done has been very, it's been very rhetorical. It's been very emotional. So I think for her to come and set up shop there before all the humans are gone and while they're still kind of at war and while you still have these militias and before Tom's dead, I think she wanted to do that specifically. I think she wanted to be the one to
right, take out Tom
and
which,
show up
once
in
again,
his
makes
show
no
up
sense.
in his capital.
Why would she put herself in that kind of jeopardy if her life is that critical? And basically, we came down to her. It was a revenge story. It was kill Bill. It was kill Tom with her as baby.
But see, she doesn't care. She doesn't care about the rest of her people, really. She cares about them as like pawns and soldiers in her effort.
To get revenge for her children being
But if she dies, she doesn't care who else dies. I don't know. It wasn't anyone else's decision to set her up there at that time. She said, "Hey, you know what? I'm moving in. If I die, you all go with me. Screw you." Like that's what she had to have been thinking. And Judy made the point about she didn't like that she looked like a spider or something. And going back to the ant analogy thing, I think it makes sense that if you take any ant and you feed it enough and let it mature enough, it's going to start growing wings and it's going to start, getting bigger and things like that. And I think that might be the same thing, almost like the s5e are like an ant colony. That's almost how it's starting to look. And who knows that if you feed one of the overlords enough, it's going to turn into a queen, Or who knows that maybe the queen is the only female s5e person or, race member that we've seen, and all the overlords are males, and they feed the queen, and she, grows into something with extra legs and tentacles and facial functionality and just things like that. I mean, I don't know. So just kind of reply to Judy just to say, like, ants do the same thing. You feed the queen, it grows wings.
Yeah.
Who knows? You feed an overlord enough that it doesn't start growing extra legs. I don't know.
It just seems strange. It seemed like she'd be the queen of the Skitters before she'd be queen of the s5e. The Skitters are a different race that the s5e have taken over.
Yeah, meh. I was wondering, is anything with a harness or spikes about to blow up? Like, is Ben gonna die now because the queen's dead, and it makes the spikes like turn on whatever the host is? I thought maybe we were about to see Ben like keel over and die.
Shall we talk about my great disappointment with this?
Oh, your great disappointment that none of the Masons died.
None of them.
It looked like Anne died.
Who did they kill? They killed that Martin guy.
Well, thank God.
I mean,
we were all getting tired of him.
But that's who they kill. It's like, really? That's who you're taking out? Seemed a little odd to me. And the fact that they didn't kill a Mason, they gave us Matt's little girlfriend again, and now we know, Matt's going to go on to be the Ben Franklin of the new world.
And can I just say that was amazing. I absolutely loved the way that they set that up. I loved all of the season 1 vibes I got off of this particular episode, but if you'll watch the opening of this episode, it opened the exact same way that episode 1 did, with Matt recounting the invasion story and set against those pictures that he had drawn, like the little crayon drawings.
Yeah. I did like that. That was cool.
I absolutely loved that. That was amazing, and it didn't come off cheesy. It didn't come off overdone. I just liked the way that they set that up, and I loved the way that this felt like it was a complete closure going back to season 1. And not to say that they didn't leave some things open-ended and some characters they didn't ever come back to, or storylines, but there was a sense of like, this is the end of the story from start to end.
Sure,
and I liked those elements.
It did have the bookends on it. I did like that. Although I was expecting, I would have been much happier had we gone to the end, gotten through all of that, and then we found out this isn't over. And you know what's interesting? Did you happen to read the synopsis of the alternate ending to this?
I didn't realize there was one.
There is.
Would you like to sit me on your knee and read it to me, please?
Well, I'm not going to read it. I'm just going to recap. But It was the same ending. It gets all the way to the point where it goes up into the sky and it says, now we know we're not alone, right?
Uh-huh.
And then the camera was going to rush back down to the Lincoln Memorial, and you were going to see that thing that killed the Queen skitter away. Implying that the Dorn are going to invade, that was what was really going on. And they said, it just seemed like a downer of an ending. Yes! This is supposed to be a downer. They can't just end this thing and be, we beat the aliens.
So you didn't like the way it ended?
No, I wanted a little more. It fell flat. It was okay.
But if there was a little more, then you would have had a cliffhanger and no closure.
Which is what I want. I wanted to know that, yes, this battle is over, but they're not done. We are now part of the intergalactic or the galactic village, and we're going to have trouble going forward. I like that better.
And again, the Dornia are extinct, so there's really none of them to invade anything.
Yeah, but this makes an interesting thought. Maybe that thing is another creature. It's another life form that the humans are going to have to deal with. They did imply that it was dangerous to humans. Yes, they changed it, but maybe you talked about evolution. Maybe it evolves. Maybe it's a problem. But
Well,
they
evolution,
didn't show us that.
Evolution, according to the theory, evolves generation to generation. Not one person evolves over time. When I talk about the ants...
Yeah, but you're talking, Frank, you're talking human evolution.
I'm talking about evolution in general.
No, you're talking human evolution.
You're talking about...
This could be, look at Jurassic Park. You know, if you take that, if you can buy Jurassic Park, that those dinosaurs started to evolve very quickly to be able to mate, even though that was taken out of their DNA. Same idea here. This thing, we don't know what this is. We don't know. How do we know their generations? They're not like gnats, and their lifespan is one day. Yet if this thing is but if this thing self-reproduces, which there are creatures that do that, so it self-reproduces and its lifespan is one day. You're saying so it
mutates over its...
And it would just keep splitting, growing, splitting.
Okay,
growing.
So there is some mutation over generations.
So yeah, what if it could be that? And you're talking, 2 months from now, you've got thousands of these things because it's done this process and it has evolved to a point that it is harmful to humans. That's an interesting idea. Now we've got a threat again. Or it acts as a beacon. Being alive here, it draws other aliens here. Just the idea that it was there was better to me than it just ending up in the stars.
That idea turns me off, to be honest with you. It seems like, well, are you going to do something with that or not?
It's the last episode.
That's why.
You
that
like
would be
a neat ending. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't want.
Why would you want to introduce a new idea and have no time to tell a story with it?
Because if it's good enough, the story can live on. It's how shows keep getting brought back 15 years later. X-Files, the story's wrapped up. Oh, no, it's not. They're coming back because there's a lot still to tell.
And let me just
Independence Day. Independence Day ended with them killing all the aliens, right?
Let me address any story writer out there. Only ever do that if you are confident that you can and will have the means and the motivation to make just as good of a story, if not a better one. Don't introduce a cliffhanger and go, well, who knows?
I disagree. I think a show like this would have been stronger to have some type of cliffhanger and leave it up to somebody in the future who is inspired by it and is going to create something.
If someone is so inspired, let them go ahead and take the characters and do something like with that. But they don't need an invitation from this current storyline and just hope that somewhere out in space someone's going to grab it by the horns and continue the story. And most likely it's not going to be in a way that has the means to tell the story correctly.
All right.
I think that's dangerous. I think you're shooting yourself in the foot.
I disagree, but that's okay. Everybody has their own perspective.
Yeah. Well, and what's interesting is that they did give us 2 alternate endings, so you can kind of pick and choose which one you like better. So if you're Team Rob here, you can just enjoy the fact that there was an alternate ending written in by the writers, and we just didn't see it on TV. Or if you're like me, you can just say, hey, well, here's the one they went with, and that's what we like.
Yeah.
So they kind of found a way to sort of please us both.
Sure.
Sort of. But okay. I think we'll maybe just let that discussion sit for now. You mentioned the CGI, and I want to go back to that because I also got a very Matrix 3 vibe from this episode where everything was kind of dark and there was just so much struggle and so much, how are we going to turn this around? Sure. And all of a sudden there's just this kind of one battle and that decides everything.
Right.
And not just that, but the thematics of it, because it was a very, as you pointed out, a very dark episode. There was a lot of nighttime scenes. There was a lot of, just dark scenery and dark things being talked about and pondered and people dying and a lot of scariness and nervousness walking through these, hatchlings and all that stuff. Well, you have to contrast that with the resolution segment at the end of the episode where there's joy on everyone's face.
Right,
There's
and everyone's
blue
got new
skies,
outfits, and it's
there's
blue sky.
sunshine.
Yeah.
You have to contrast that scene. You have to let that blow you away and be like, whoa, after all the darkness we just went through, look at this gorgeous day.
Sure.
And that's very literary. That's not just like, oh, well, let's record the next scene now. I mean, they specifically wrote having a sunshiny, beautiful day.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
With joy on everyone's face, everyone dressed up, in their uniforms and garments. Now, did you notice there wasn't any electricity at that point yet?
Right.
Matt was still writing by candlelight.
Right.
I thought that was kind of interesting that they were able to have those, clothing, and they were able to rebuild like Lincoln's statue, but they couldn't find a generator to put a...
They might have. That might have been more about them. The Masons are the family that's kind of the root, and they were kind of going back to, like I said, he's the Ben Franklin of the group, or the Thomas Jefferson of the group, and having him write by candlelight, that makes sense to me.
Okay.
That doesn't mean they don't have power. They've had
power.
We've seen power
thematic
throughout this series.
Right.
So I'm sure they had it, but once again, thematic.
I just find it funny that, like, after seeing, like, generators and electricity the entire journey, now they finally, like, the war is over, they're writing by candlelight. I just thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah, once again, he's Thomas Jefferson or Ben Franklin.
So it was done thematically.
Yep.
Okay, cool. What else do we need to talk? Okay, Pope. Pope came back.
Oh, man. I really wish that hadn't happened.
That was just...
And what a chump way to die. He just puts his gun down and dies?
That was Mike from Breaking Bad. Remember that?
Which was great when Mike died.
Yeah, that actually made a lot more sense because the Mike and whatever his name was. Walter. Yeah, the Mike and Walt story was coming to a head there, but right when we thought the Pope and Tom story, and we hadn't seen Pope in 2 episodes, and all of a sudden we see him at the end of that episode, he comes back and has a very short-lived, anticlimactic, apparent death.
Why didn't he shoot Tom right there? How much more interesting would that be?
You mean at the end of this episode?
Yeah, right here.
If he had shot Tom?
He shot Tom as he's walking up. He falls over dead, but Tom falls in the water, and he's rebirthed just as Anne is.
And that was bizarre. That like octopus came and took Anne away.
Yeah, the Kraken was unleashed.
Yeah, what on earth were we seeing there?
I don't know.
That was
kind of bizarre. We were seeing whatever was that ship with the Dorn in it. That's what we were seeing.
Okay, but what was that, though? Because I always got the sense that with the Dornia and the visions that it was some kind of... I didn't get the sense that there was an octopus in the ocean. I thought that had to do with some kind of interdimensional thing that he could communicate to, and it could communicate to him, but it could do so most effectively by activating his memories and things like that. Like, I didn't get the sense that there was some kind of, like, physical organism out in the
I don't know.
Potomac,
I have no idea. I think that was tied to the ship somehow. Because we saw the tendrils that were holding the beamer.
It was just it was a little bizarre, and for Pope to walk out there right at that moment, like nobody else saw him, no one else, he snuck up on Tom just to have that final little conversation and just to see if Tom would shoot him. I mean, it was just I think that could have been handled better. I think it would have made sense to have Pope completely out of the picture by the final episode. I think that would make a lot of sense.
Like I told you in the last one, if they had a shot where we saw Pope's bloody hand in the rubble, it would have given closure and it would have been satisfying. This was not satisfying. This was like, really? What just happened here? That's how I felt.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, I'm going to just ask you a straight-up question. Did you like this episode? Did you think this was a good swing at the end? Or was it disappointing to you?
Given our conversation from the last podcast where I said that with only 1 episode left, there's only so much they can do, and that fact disappointed me. Given that, I was very impressed with this episode. I thought this episode was very satisfying for what it had to have been. Like I thought it was everything that it could be given episode 9.
All right, that's a fair
for the most part. I didn't think seeing Pope was necessary or good for the episode, but it was so short and it didn't have any bearing on any other aspect of the episode really at all, to where the point where I was just kind of like, okay. whatever.
I also see. I'm kind of the opposite. It was okay. I was disappointed here at the end. And now it's been a couple of days since I've watched. Because I watched it live and tweeted and everything, and we did that little round table. And I'm finding myself less impressed as the further away I am from it.
Oh, so as time
things,
goes by.
Yeah, and there were things that I did like. There were cool things. I obviously loved the series, and here we got to the end, and it stumbled on the finish line for me.
Did you not like...
I didn't like Anne
Queen?
being pregnant. I thought that was dumb.
That was kind of weird. But...
I thought the Pope thing was dumb. I did not like the Queen at all.
Oh,
it
see,
looked
I
like Miss
loved
Spider.
the Queen.
No, man, it looked like Miss Spider from the kids' books.
I thought
it was a total
rip
ripoff of Alien. This was Alien. They had the eggs. And the eggs were pretty cool, but it was that scene from Alien.
I did get a Prometheus kind of vibe.
And then
from all that.
the spider, it's Aliens. It's the second Alien movie. It's the big alien queen, but we didn't have a cool ass Sigourney Weaver in a big yellow thing fighting her.
How would you have drawn the queen? Like, would you have made it, or would you not have had a queen at all?
If you're going to go with a queen, I wouldn't have made her look like Miss Spider. I would have made her look like a cross between Jabba the Hutt and the fish heads. They made her big. Make her big, menacing. When I say Jabba the Hutt, I don't mean a slug. I mean just like a big menacing, but she'd have kind of the head of the fish heads.
I think though that she has to look kind of Overlord-esque, but just more developed, more more stages down the road, kind of like how a queen bee or a queen ant looks to the rest of the colony. Or I don't know if you're familiar.
But this looked like a different species.
I don't know if you're familiar with Metroid,
sure.
But I got a Metroid vibe from
I can see
that queen.
To me, it just felt like a different species, and it fell flat for me. Plus, I thought it was way too lit. I thought we could see too much of it when everything else was in the dark. I would have been okay if it had been a little darker. Think about back when they had, what's his name, Brian, the mutant Skidder at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
He was in the shadows a lot. You really never got that look at him.
So was Genie in last season.
But here we got this like super bright, like, oh, I can see the action figure already. It didn't work for me as well.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. I really enjoyed that entire thing. I thought that was very climactic. I thought it was very fun to watch. The back and forth between them, and I thought the reveal of some of that stuff that we were always kind of wondering all these years, going like, why exactly are they here, and what exactly do they want with Earth? And there's always a little something we don't know. And I just thought it was very funny how like all the other conversations and all the times that Tom would scream, "What do you want from us?" and like all these conversations that he had with people like Karen and all the other overlords and rebel skidders and everyone in between. He never got that just straight up solid answer, and I love that she was just so straightforward with him. She's like,
I do like that.
She walked up to him and was like, "Hey, like, you do know why we're here, right? Let me tell you, it's this, this, and this, and so there you go." And I loved that, Tom's response was like, "Really?" Like, and you just thought that this, and like, I just thought that they had a very enjoyable conversation.
I can get that. I can get behind that.
So I honestly thought that entire thing was very cool.
Yeah, like I said, just for me, there was something that just didn't connect there. But it might have been I was already kind of down on things because I didn't like certain things that were going on.
Yeah, the things that didn't connect for me are like the Lexi coming back, the Pope coming back, things like that. And I'm just kind of like, but they died. And meanwhile, like, we have people who aren't coming back that didn't die, like Porter,
right,
who I was hoping to see sometime this season and not even mentioned. Things like that. That's kind of what I can't get behind. But I was very impressed with that Queen situation. And who knows, maybe in a few days I'll think back on it and kind of go like, oh, wait a minute, that was kind of dumb.
Yeah,
or I'll watch it. Or maybe I'll watch it again and I'll be like, oh. But as for right now, after just watching it fresh off the press, I'm like, I like that. I was very blown away by that. That was very cool.
Like I said, it's a couple of days later for me, and it just kind of feels this way. It's just not connecting for me. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But I didn't dislike it. Watching it, I had fun with it. It just didn't live up to the expectations I had from previous seasons.
Well, we've already been down that road.
It's not one of those terrible episodes where, sometimes you get to the end of a series and you go, what the hell? That wasn't what this was. This was good, but I wanted a lot more. My expectations were much higher after some of the great season enders we've seen.
Right. And okay, if we're talking from that framework, I agree with you. I think season 5 in general was a disappointment, but I think as far as where episode 9 just left us last week, and now all of a sudden we're at episode 10, that's the series finale. I think they did as good of a job with it as really they could have, other than maybe Pope showing up. Other than that, but I mean that was what, 40 seconds. I thought they did a relatively great job with the final episode. If they just rode up to season 9 or episode 9 of this season and then said we're bringing in like Frank Stella to basically be the showrunner for episode 10, I think you saw something relatively similar to what I would put out.
Very cool. All right.
I think I probably would have
I think you've also seen that it's very different than what I would have put out.
Yeah, I get that. Now, okay, what about Hal and Maggie's proposal? What do we think about that?
Convenient and didn't do anything for me. How about you?
Yeah, I thought it was just kind of BS. I just kind of overlooked
we got to resolve this.
Hey,
Hey, guess what? Yeah, no, thanks.
I'm sorry, what?
It was just like, we got to resolve this, and he just threw away the other girl.
And where
proposed
was she?
To Maggie? It was she wasn't necessary anymore.
Well, she was barely in episode 9, not in this finale at all.
Right.
I mean, did we even see her at the end there when it was showing everybody smiling? I couldn't tell because a lot of people were dressed so differently and hairstyles were done differently.
Yeah,
but
I don't know. But
I remember looking at it
all I know
like,
is they threw that character away because all she was a plot device.
But it looked like in episode 8 or 7, it looked like they were pretty much going steady. Like Hal was like, you know what? Forget Maggie.
It seemed like he was deciding on her.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, will you marry me? Hurry up and say yes right now, right now, right now. Okay, great. And the other character that he was pretty much dating is just gone, which is not how it works in real life.
Right. Yep.
So, yeah, I thought that was just kind of schlocky. But the entire thing, ever since Karen, I thought the entire Hal relationship dating game, was just sloppy. I still say Karen or stick with Maggie. Then they had Ben fall in love with Maggie. Then Hal started falling in love with someone else who disappeared. And then all of a sudden it was like Maggie and just weird. Just weird and kind of schlocky, and which of course is actually how relationships work in real life. It's a lot of like sloppiness that isn't always handled very cleanly, and a lot of people are always getting kind of screwed over and forgotten about, and that's just kind of how reality goes. But for the sake of the show, I thought it was just weird writing, and I thought like maybe it just felt like they didn't know what they were doing. Like as they were writing through the relationship, they just kind of thought like every day let's just like take it in a new bizarre state. So I don't know.
That was disappointing to me. But like I said, I told you, I think it would have been so much stronger to have at least one of the Masons die. I think that they could have. I
thought Hal was gonna die in episode 9, and I thought Ben was about to die as soon as. And I thought, like, how crazy would it be if Tom killing the Queen kills Ben inadvertently because of the spikes hooked
It would
up?
have been great. Would have been interesting.
I thought we were seriously about to see. I thought like Anne was dying and Tom was about to kill Ben, and he was going to come back to find out that Anne had died, and basically he killed Ben unknowingly.
Yeah.
I thought that's what was going to happen, and kind of neither of those happened.
Right.
So, yeah. But I do think they were able to successfully pull out a relatively happy ending, and one that they were able to attach, that little monologue-y moral thing too about, humanity going forward. And I always love when science fiction shows can pull those out. It's like, what other concept can you, like, say stuff like that, or like Sarah Connor at the end of Terminator 2 with that little speech and just things like that. I love it. And I got that vibe. Another reason I got a season 1 vibe from this is, there was some talk about like Tom remembering what he's fighting for, or like, oh, right, this is the battle we're fighting. This is why we're fighting. Well, they used to be able to do that in season 1 and times like that without saying it. Remember, I want to say it was episode 3, and it was like the Grace episode or Faith episode or whichever it was called.
Okay.
And I think it was called Grace. And they said Grace before the meal at the end of the episode, and they were all like going around the table saying, I think Lourdes was the person who led the prayer, and they were saying they were going around saying things that they were thankful for. And I was just like, that's so cool that like in a post-apocalyptic world where they're fighting death and danger and sickness and heartbreak every single day, they're still able to sit back around the table and remember, here's why we're fighting. Like, we're fighting for the quality times that we have each other, for the relationships that we have each other, for the sense of community that really is what human life itself is made out of. And I love that they were able to kind of come back to that in this episode and kind of give us that season 1 vibe of like, here's why this is important. Like, it's not just all about guns
cool.
This isn't all just about guns and explosions. It's about human community and why anyone would fight for anything.
Right.
So I thought that was very cool that they were able to kind of throw it back to that sentiment.
I agree. That was nice.
Yeah. And the way they were also kind of able to tie it back into a sense of where humanity belongs in history and what we can learn from history and what we can learn from ourselves going forward. And just that vibe that we felt a lot in season 1, which is where my catch line motto comes from of, keep
stay vigilant, yes.
Vigilant, brave, and active, or whatever it is. That, of course, comes from Patrick Henry, where Tom's quoting him there in the final episode of season 1. And I always just thought, like, I love that line because that's Tom's life motto.
That's him right there, yeah.
Yeah, everything he does is vigilant, active, and brave. Even when he's not making the best decisions, even when he's has a lapse in judgment, or and we've seen plenty of times, especially this season, he's still vigilant, active, and brave. And and that's, I think, what he leads by example. He leads and encourages everyone around him to be vigilant, active, and brave, so that when the time to act comes, when something's really going to matter, when something is really worth fighting for is being threatened, that we as a community, which is, again, why we're fighting, are able to stand up as a community and neutralize the threat. That you protect the community as a community by staying vigilant, active, and brave. And I love that he carried that mission into everything he ever did, said, and thought. So props for that. Rob, do you have an all-time favorite Falling Skies character?
Oh, wow. You're laying this on me.
Yeah, on the spot.
I think the best overall character was Pope.
Okay, the best. Is he your favorite?
Yeah, I do think he was my favorite character because he had an arc, because of what he was. I don't like how they ended him, but even in this last season, he was one of the more interesting things.
How would you have liked to seen Pope's story end? At what point would it deviate from where it did end in the story, and what would?
Well, I told you. I think he should have died in that. They shouldn't have done the thing in the last episode. That was a waste.
So you were fine with the way his story arced, and for him to just die in episode 9 there?
You'd have to go back and restart season 5 and figure out a new path. From the path they had laid out there, yes, I'm fine. Just we needed him to die, and we needed to see he was dead in episode 9.
Mm-hmm.
This was a silly ending.
I think the drama, the Pope-Tom drama that we've seen spring up in pretty much every season, I think it could have played out way more interesting and not been as much of a sideshow.
Right.
In season 5.
And it fizzled at the end. So, How about you? What was your favorite?
He's your favorite. You'd say he's your favorite character?
I would say, yeah. I mean, if I had to really, if I was hard pressed, I mean, I think Tom is a great character. I think Cochise is a great character. And, I think Pope.
Yeah, see, I thought you were going to say Cochise.
Yeah, no, I mean, Cochise is great, but he had nothing to do this season.
Yeah, he really did almost nothing.
It's really sad.
Other than
character,
they would look at him every time they would learn something. Go, Cochise, what do you know about this? And he'd be like, "Oh, well,
he'd have a throwaway line, and it's over." It's like
I did not think that this was going to be happening.
Yeah. There was a lot more that could have been done with him. And did I love the character? Yeah. I mean, he deserves to be in there of the best characters.
That's why I ask about all time. Like, even going back to seasons 3 and 4 where he was, or even going back to seasons 1 and 2, any of those characters that maybe even died early along the way that you just liked. And there's a sense in which a character that you like, usually, I guess, when I think of that in terms of, for me, I think of someone that I can relate to. And I didn't feel that I related to Pope very much at all. Pope and I are really kind of nothing alike. although I will say that, to be honest with you, I think in this season 5, I related to him more than in any other season.
Oh,
just with
interesting.
the sense of loss and his reaction to it. I think like, oh, that almost looks like something that I would do something similar to, maybe, or at least in my head I would.
In your shaved head.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But as far as favorite characters, I feel like saying Tom or even Weaver are kind of like
Yeah,
the easy choices,
I think so too.
almost like too obvious.
But I think you could make an argument for either one.
I really love Matt.
Okay.
I think Matt might be one of my favorites. I loved a lot of those guys that died early on. I remember Jimmy, who died in season 2. Rick, that little African American boy with he was always kind of having problems. I really liked him. Let's see here.
Well, maybe there was a little better character development at that point too.
Yeah, and I think there was in a lot of ways. Not that there wasn't along here, but things didn't feel as sloppy. You know, especially with these like relationships and the Maggie situations and Hal and Ben. I just thought that was so sloppy compared to, back in, seasons like 1 and 2, and it was like, Ben and Jimmy just out, doing their thing, or it was Rick and, or it was Karen and Hal, and just stuff didn't seem as like goofy. Things just seemed kind of normal, but then just things seemed kind of goofy later on. But you know what? If I'm just gonna be Johnny on the spot right now, I'll just go out right now and just say Matt was my favorite character.
All right.
I think Max Knight did an excellent job from every season, and I mean he changed a lot. He grew up a lot. His acting skills, evolved a lot. But even going back to that first season, even the first pilot episode, I thought Max Knight, even as a little kid, did a fantastic job capturing what a little kid might be doing or thinking or acting like given that scenario where they're just, they're interested in their birthday party and, their scooter, and they just want things to go back the way they were. They don't want to go to school. They're, traumatized over the invasion. Just being a kid. And I loved seeing his the actors' choices and the direction that they did with Max and or Maxim. I'm not sure which he prefers to go by, but whatever. Yeah, I really enjoyed him as an actor and as a character, and so I'm gonna give my favorite character to Matt.
All right.
Now watch in like 2 weeks and be like, oh, I forgot about so.
Karen.
Karen. I loved Karen. Always wanted to see them try and capture her and deharness her. Never happened.
No.
So yeah, Karen definitely is going to get an honorable mention. Just a good kid. Just
a good kid.
Just a good kid that was a victim, just like anybody else, was under the influence, just like anybody else was and could have been. I mean, Lourdes, Tom. Sometimes even, I mean,
yeah, they were definitely victims and puppets to a lot of this.
Yeah, and it always seemed kind of unfair to me that they seemed like Karen was this like big arch enemy. And I was like, she's a harnessed kid,
right?
Just like Ben was. I mean, come on, guys. But whatever, no one listened to me, so especially you,
especially me. So Frank, is that it? Are we done with Falling Skies?
And the traditionalist in me who doesn't want this to come to an end is like literally scrambling right now in my head for what else should we talk about. Oh, here's one thing I wanted to mention. And it's not that big of a deal. But did you notice, like, in this last season, and almost it seemed like the last 5 or so episodes of the season, was there more like swearing and the use of strong language in these final episodes than it seemed like there was?
I didn't notice that.
I felt like there was a lot. And I don't know if it had to do with,
maybe they were using that to draw attention or something.
Either that, I don't know if that had to do with maybe something I was seeing on the app versus something you were seeing on the TV. I don't think they would have made 2 different versions just for that.
I'm sure.
But I just remember, it just seems like every time I watch the episodes on the app, I'm like, whoa, did they really say that? Did they just use that word? Like, that's like the second or third time now this episode. Like, wow, I don't remember them talking like that in other seasons.
Yeah, I didn't notice that at all.
So okay, well, if anybody else did, feel free to contribute with your commentary, and as we said in a previous podcast, this is the last podcast that we are intending to do for this particular show. and I can't guarantee there won't be something come down the pipe
You never know.
If something comes up, or maybe one of the people on the show, we get an interview with them. We'll add that to the list here most likely. But
we go to a lot of Comic-Cons, so you never know.
Yeah, absolutely. Or if we run into Will Wheaton, we'll have to get his thoughts on all this.
Yes.
Yeah, but as it stands right now, this is our final podcast of what we might just call the regular season, the regular schedule. We don't currently have plans on getting together for another podcast set in stone right now. So that being the case, just going forward, we just want to maintain relationships, especially with all of our listeners and friends who have gotten on board.
The Facebook page will remain. There's a forum that we don't really use yet, but that will be there. And Twitter will still be active.
Yeah, and the
website.
So, and if you have a email that you want to send to us, just send that to the Southgate Media Group at gmail.com.
Or that's the best way to do it. Southgate Media Group at gmail.com. Best way to do it.
Yeah, so get a hold of us through that way. Why I'm really going into this is just because I don't want to feel like the show is over and now we lost some of our friends who had been listening to us. We have a lot of other shows to listen to at southgatemediagroup.com.
Well, and shows that we're both on. I mean, you've got Heroes Reborn coming up. I know you expressed interest in another one.
Yeah, so I don't want to jump the gun on that, but
there are possibilities.
Yeah.
I mean, we're still doing stuff. It's just this particular show in the immediate, this is it. But that doesn't mean, like we said, we get a good interview, man, we're going to post it on here. You don't have to close out your subscription because it doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't do anything to have a subscription on iTunes or Stitcher. And there may be something that'll pop up here and there.
Right.
Why not?
And if you ever have a question, a comment, a theory, or something to clarify that we said on any podcast, shoot us an email, shoot us a tweet. The conversation can still go on is the only point I'm trying to make. So this isn't goodbye. This is just final podcast, and let's just enjoy whatever conversations and friendships stem from these talks.
There you go. Sounds good to me. So
that's that. But yeah, we've got Heroes Reborn coming up. That's going to come down the pipe later this month. And I know there's a lot of events going on. We're kind of a Chicago-based company, although I'm not sure if that even really makes any sense given,
we've got people all over the world.
The global platform.
We have podcasters all over the world, but we just happen to have, this is where Martha and I are based, and we have, I don't know, maybe 10 of our 90 podcasters are here, so it is kind of a hub.
Right. So we have events going on, but I mean, we hit a lot of the cons, kind of around the country. And but just stay tuned for the events if that's something you ever want to hit us up at, one of the events that we're going to be at anywhere in your area. Or if you ever are around Chicago, you can definitely come by the Blue Box Cafe or the Wizard World if that's going on. We're there all the time.
Yep. There you go.
Yeah, so let's see. Is there anything else we need to promote or talk about? Or
I think I'm done. Just the website is southgatemediagroup.com. Check us out there.
Yeah, and the email address, the Falling Skies Second Mass Report Twitter is Falling Skies Pod.
Second Mass Pod.
Second Mass Pod? What did I say, Second Skies?
No, you said Falling Skies.
You know what? Give me a break.
Yep. Well, we got to get it right.
We got to get it right. Okay. All right. You got a point.
That's right. But the Facebook page is still there, too.
Yeah, Facebook page is just the name of the podcast, so we'd love to hang out with you there. I guess we'll go ahead and wrap it up. I hate feeling like these are the last sweet moments of the Falling Skies podcast that has gone on for this many years now, but you know what? I don't want to bore anybody to death, so let's just wrap this thing up, huh, Rob?
That's it. Thanks,
all
Frank.
Right.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, it has been a pleasure, and there will be a lot more pleasures still to come.
Yep.
So,
boy, that was awkward and weird.
You know what? You know me by now.
Yeah.
Second Mass Report, Falling Skies podcast is a production of the Southgate Media Group. For all of our friends and fans listening, and for Rob Southgate and Martha and everyone that's been a part of this, Judy, everyone that's been a part of this podcast, thanks so much for listening. And everybody make sure that you stay vigilant, active, and brave.